Welcome back, everybody. As promised, this is the final installment for Letha. We've got the summer solstice, midsummer, and this is our meal that we're going to be doing today. And we have quite the repast ahead of us. Now, as you can see in front of you, I do have some store-bought items because I currently don't have any fruit growing. I do have strawberries, but they're very, very tiny. So I have a few of store-bought items. These are all organic. And we have strawberries, and we've got some incredible cherries over here. We've got green grapes, we've got blueberries. I did purchase some corn because I was not able to plant corn this year. And we've got some honey and yogurt. I also have a fantastic venison steaks that we're going to be braising. And I also have a French boule, which is basically a rustic French loaf of bread. It's beautiful. And for the actual menu, we're doing, of course, the braised venison steaks. We're doing the French boule. And then we're also going to be doing a summer sausage. We're going to be doing fresh fruits and brie cheese. And I'm going to roast the corn on the cob over here. And then I'm going to make a lovely dessert of just the Greek yogurt, honey, and fruit. So come along for the ride. It's going to be a wonderful meal. Welcome back, everybody. And we are going to be doing the meal for the celebration for midsummer and summer solstice, Letha. And I initially was going to do pork chops, and I really didn't want to, but it's what I had. And when I went to retrieve them from the freezer, I came across something that I had forgotten I had, which was venison. And venison, I thought, is a perfect choice to celebrate the god and goddess and all things midsummer. It's an undomesticated animal. It's a perfect choice for the protein for the meal. So it's very simple. These are venison steaks. They are very small. As you can see, they are rather tiny. They're meant to be not very large, not like a beef steak would be. And what we're going to do is we're going to braise them low and slow for a long period of time in some lovely stock. I'm going to actually not use chicken stock, obviously, because it's venison, but I'm going to use the next best thing, which would be a beef stock. And I do use Better Than Bouillon because I can't afford, and I'm not sure of too many people that could, to get their hands on a large enough capacity of beef bones to actually make stock. So we're going to be using this, and it's quite good. I've used it for a number of years. Love it. Now, our Dutch oven is good and hot here, and this is very simple. Venison is a very simple protein to prepare. You don't have to get fancy with it. You can do lots of rubs. You can do all kinds of fun things, but we are keeping it simple and just enjoying the flavor of the meal. And all I'm using is my tried and true salt and pepper, garlic powder, onion powder. And we are going to do this like we would if we were doing a roast. So I'm going to sear and then simmer, or in this case, braise. I have a hard time figuring out the difference really between braising and simmering because it's kind of the same thing. You're using liquid for a long period of time. So yeah. And I've got my tried and true, locally sourced, well, not locally sourced, but responsibly sourced olive oil. And we're going to put a good amount in there, probably about a quarter cup. And we're just going to start putting these little medallion steaks in. And we're just going to get a nice crust on each side. Probably, these guys are small, so I should be able to get a nice crust on these about 4 minutes per side. Now, once I get them in, I will go ahead and do the same seasoning on the other side. Always season both sides of your proteins. It's not just for flavor, it also gets into the meat, so you really need to do both sides. Okay, and then our onion powder. And then I'm going to set our timer. And I'm going to go about 4 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get these seared up, and then I'll be back when we get our stock ready. Okay, our time is about done. I have already flipped these, and what I did is the Better Than Bouillon, if you're not familiar with it, is a base, and you do dilute it, which I've done in some hot water here. So I'm simply going to pour this over. And even diluted, it's still pretty salty. So I just poured some water off from our water bottle cooler, and I'm going to top this off just enough to cover the meat. And what I'm going to do is now let this come to a boil, reduce the heat to simmer, cover it, and it's going to go low and slow for probably a good 2 hours, even though, whoop, there's our timer. Even though they're smaller cuts of meat, they are still very, very tough, and they do need time to break down. So even though they're smaller, it's still going to be a couple of hours, possibly 3. It's been a long time since I've worked with venison. So we will let this come to a simmer and get that ready and to go get it covered with a lid and move on with that. And then we're going to move on to making our overnight rustic French boule bread. Alrighty, now that our venison is simmering, I am going to get started on the rustic French bread, or French boule, however you like to refer to it. The French boule is similar in design and length of time that the dough actually needs to rest. But what we're doing is pretty much the same thing, except I'm probably not going to do too many fancy designs on top. So it's pretty straightforward. All we're going to do is to take our warm water and we're going to add it to the bowl, and that is 3 cups. And then everything else is pretty straightforward. I have measured out 6.5 cups of bread flour. We're going to use a tablespoon of yeast. And it doesn't call for it, but I'm going to add a little bit of honey because yeast needs sugar. And I realize that some breads don't require that, but I'm going to put about half a teaspoon in. Just a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and give this just a little turn. And then I'm going to let this sit for about 5 to 7 minutes. Then we'll move on to the next step. Alrighty, so we're back. Our yeast is all bubbly and happy. It literally is bubbly and happy. I was standing here watching it, actually going boop, boop, boop on the surface. It was so great. Now the last thing I do need to add is it calls for a heaping tablespoon of salt. So we're going to see if we can get heaping out of my poor salt cellar here that's almost empty. Let's see what we got here. Well, it's not exactly heaping, but okay, we'll call that heaping. All right, so we're going to give that a quick mix. Okay, I would call that good. And then, as I mentioned before, it calls for 6.5 cups of flour. So I'm going to add it in kind of gradually. You just want it to come together, but you don't also want to have a cloud of flour in your kitchen. And I'm going to go ahead and grab a spatula. I can wrestle it out of the drawer just to kind of keep the sides down there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add some more flour. Whoop. Okay. Try to get what I dumped on the counter. Okay. I think I'm wearing more of it. Okay, we can probably put the rest in there. Crank it up a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and finish mixing this because I'm sure it sounds incredibly loud to you all. So I will be right back. Okay, so we've got the dough together. I did end up adding just a tiny, tiny bit of water to it. It was a little dry. A little dry. Okay, let's see if I can wrestle the hook out. Okay, we got it. Now, the interesting thing about these breads is that the rise takes place over a long period of time. Let me see here. What I've done is I'm going to rise it and bake it in this Dutch oven. Pull it back out. Sorry for the noise there. Now, what I'm going to do is, since I made a little bit of a mess here, I am going to kind of get it formed. Give it a little bit of shape, because as it rises, you're only going to knead it before you bake it for just a little bit before you throw it in the oven. And you want a nice smooth dough. And the fun part about this is you're going to pinch and pull till you've got a happy little ball. And all I'm going to do is we're going to put it inside our Dutch oven with parchment paper. We're going to drape a towel over it, and then we're going to leave it till tomorrow. And I will see you back then. We are back with the bread, and the bread has risen overnight, and you don't punch this bread down, but you do take it out. I just left it in the Dutch oven overnight with a towel on it, and you take the dough out and you don't knead it, you roll it over and you kind of pinch it into a ball and then put it back into the Dutch oven pan, cover it with a towel and let it rest for another 40 minutes to an hour. And mine's been at an hour, and let's see how it looks. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, it's perfect. Now we've got our oven set at 450, and it's going to bake in the oven between 30 and 35 minutes. And the venison steaks finished cooking last night, and then I refrigerated them overnight. They're always better the next day. And we have some other wonderful things that we're going to get ready to go. We have fruits and yogurt, honey. We have cheeses and meats, and I think it's going to be really fun. So let me go ahead and get set up to score this, and we're going to pop it in the oven. Okay, we've got our dough here, and I'm going to not get too fancy with this. Okay, here we go. I've got the perfect knife, just a little paring knife. And I don't have one of those fancy scorers, but that's fine. I'm just going to, what do I want to do here? You know, I think I'm just going to do some single scores and then do kind of like that wheat pattern that you see. I don't know how well you can see that, but theoretically it will poof up and be fabulous. At least that's what I am going to tell myself. Okay, so it's scored. It needs to be covered for 20 minutes, and then you take the lid off and finish cooking it. And remember, we're going to be cooking it between 30 and 35 minutes. So I will be right back. Well, the bread came out beautifully. The score marks I put in the top of it, they don't really show, and I'm okay with that. This is just a rustic loaf of goodness right here, though. So I'm very happy about that. So I'm going to go ahead and get that sliced, and then we're going to start assembling our board. Okay, so I've started slicing the bread. Now what I'm going to do is position it towards the corner, and I'm going to take these other pieces that I've sliced off, and we're going to try and be artistic with this here. Let's see here. Yeah, like that. I cut off the end piece, I guess snacks for the cook, and I'm going to set that aside. It looks beautiful on the inside. I think it'd be great for a gathering. And once I've cooked this, I let it set for 2 hours because it really does need to cool almost to completion. It's actually still just gently warm on the inside. That's what you want. Piping hot bread, it's like meat. If you don't let it rest, it gets weird. So, okay, so we've got our bread, nice and pretty. And I have the brie cheese unwrapped. I do probably want to start that. There's an old saying by Ina Garten that if you don't start the cheese, no one will be the first one to cut it. So you always want to do that first. And I think because, and this has been at room temperature for about 30 minutes or so, depending on the cheese that you choose is how long you want to have it out. It don't serve cold cheese. It just, you will experience the flavors of the cheese so much better when it's at room temperature. So I think what I'm going to do is just cut a small wedge. And where do I want to put you? How about right here in front of the bread? Now I've cut a small wedge out, as you can see, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this knife for the cheese. I don't have a cheese knife, so. And do I want to do that there? Yeah, I do. Okay, so that makes it welcoming to your guests. And now let's assemble some fruits. Now I've got over here some grapes. Let's put those right there. I have these beautiful cherries. These are California Rainier cherries. My goodness, they are delicious. If I can grow cherries in the next upcoming years, it will be this variety. They are absolutely beautiful. I'm going to take, they're not really on a thick stem, so we're just going to, whoop, as they run across the board, I'm just going to kind of tuck them in. Let's see if I can keep them together. Okay, that actually looks really beautiful. I'm going to kind of hug those grapes around the bread there. And I have some summer sausage we're going to slice up. And I think let's just do it on the bag. I did open this because I wanted to taste it. I mean, obviously I have to taste it. And I just used my cheese knife, or the knife I'm going to use for the cheese, but that's all right. We can wash that. And I'm just going to slice this into rounds. And I think I'm gonna do all of it. Let's see, that's looking pretty good. And this is just a nice refrigerated sausage. It pairs well with the cheese. When you do a board like this for a gathering, you want things to kind of pair well together. And because this is midsummer and we're celebrating Letha, we want those summer colors, those summer flavors. And those pops of color are beauty to the eye and tasty on the palate. And the slices do not have to be perfect. I would not serve these little end pieces. They're not very attractive. Again, probably a snack for the cook. And just kind of carefully, carefully, as I said. It doesn't help. I'm cutting on plastic. Let me sneak over here. Okay, there we go. Now, let me get my knife cleaned up here. I will clean this before I start feeding people. Okay, so we've got all of the sausage here. Now, let's see. We've got our beautiful wine here. It's Apothic Crush. Apothic is a fantastic wine company. They put out some of the best wines I've ever tasted. They're wonderful. Even though it's a summer bash, I think that because we're serving venison, I think the red just goes. It goes well. So I'm going to set that right in the corner opposite the bread, put the glass there. I'm going to park the opener right there. And I think we'll put our sausage right here. Let's see. Everything's going this way. So let's line that up. And honestly, to make things look fancier than they really are, follow the flow of your board. So like we started with our bread over here and we came this direction. So we're going to follow, we followed with the grapes, then the cheese, and now the meats. And it's that simple. And what's really great about this kind of thing for a party, you can refill it throughout the night and it virtually maintains the same aesthetic. And it's so easy for your guests because they just come by, grab, some fruit, whatever they like. Okay, and I think that's it for our board. Next, I'm going to assemble the venison steaks. I'm going to put the corn out, and I'm going to make a very simple dessert with some Greek yogurt, some honey, and some fruit. So, I'll see you in a minute. And here it is, my friends. I think it turned out great. We've got all of our beautiful components right here on the table with our summer sausage and our wine, our cheese, fruit, and bread. We have over here a lovely berry dessert with Greek yogurt and raw honey. We've got extra fruit over here for little picks throughout the meal. We've got some beautiful summer corn over here with the beautiful Thai basil as a garnish. And down here is a serving of our venison steaks with rosemary and the garlic from the garden, the garlic scapes. Everyone, I really hope that you enjoy your Litha celebration. I know that I will. I'm always thinking of you all. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful celebration. Blessings to you and yours, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, friends.